Multicolor 3D printing has gotten kind of ridiculous. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dan, and welcome to my print room. Today I am joined by the fabulous Anycubic Kobra 4 combo. And I've been putting this bad boy through a bunch of different tests lately, such as flexible prints, glow-in-the-dark filament, ABS, PETG, large prints, tiny prints, and of course, multicolor 3D printing. So today I wanted to see how reliable this machine is and what it brings to the table. I do want to quickly mention that Anycubic sponsored this video and sent me this 3D printer to do a review on. However, all thoughts and opinions throughout this entire video are my own. So without further ado, let's get into it. The setup for this 3D printer was super easy, and Anycubic claims that it takes 15 minutes to set this up, so I took that as a challenge. You basically just remove a few shipping bolts, attach the extruder with 4 screws, throw in some PTFE tubes, and you're ready to go. Now, technically, this took me 18 minutes, 4 seconds, and 68 milliseconds to set this up. However, I started the timer when I started unboxing the 3D printer, and I challenged myself to do this without a manual, which I should have read because I mounted the extruder behind the gantry. But it was a very simple fix though. Moving on, once powered on, the 3D printer walks you through calibration and setup automatically. You scan the QR code using the Anycubic app, which links it to your account, and the printer handles the rest. The entire process took maybe 15 minutes total, and then it was ready to start printing. It was basically unbox, remove some screws, add some screws, attach the extruder, set up, and you're ready to start printing. Now, the Kobra 4 features a 260mm3 build volume, which is great for props, helmets, or basically any regular thing that you're going to be printing. And the price for this printer is $199 for the Kobra 4 and $299 for the Kobra 4 combo. Please keep in mind these prices are based on the AliExpress price after applying the platform discounts. Now, the Anycubic Kobra 4 combo also comes with the Ace 2 Pro filament management system, which not only handles the multicolor 3D printing and filament management, but it's a filament dryer as well. It runs between 35 and 65 degrees Celsius while printing, or if you just want to dry your filament without printing, you can. I also want to point out that the Kobra 4 is a standalone unit. You do not need the Ace 2 Pro if you don't want it. You can simply just use the filament spool and print with one filament at a time. And another cool thing is if you connect a secondary Ace 2 Pro unit, you can expand the 3D printer to 8 color printing. I only had 1 unit for testing, however the results from 4 colors was pretty impressive. It also features automatic filament recognition for Anycubic materials, meaning the printer automatically detects filament settings without needing the user to manually enter everything yourself. And this means you don't have to press a single button. Once the filament starts feeding, that's it. It'll automatically adjust all the settings. Now, with so many printers hitting the market, it is really cool to see little quality of life improvements like this. For the very first print, I wanted to keep things simple. So naturally, I printed a giant flexible axolotl. I loaded up this really nice iridescent green filament, changed absolutely nothing in the slicer, and just hit print. And honestly, for a completely out-of-the-box printer, this thing came out amazing. The quality was super consistent throughout the entire model. All the articulated sections moved properly, the layers looked really clean, and the bottom surface came out super smooth. Now, the first layer is one of the easiest ways to tell if a printer is going to print properly or not, and it's arguably the most important part of the print. But the Kobra 4 absolutely nailed it. The print didn't have any weird artifacts, adhesion problems, or failures. It was just a really clean print straight away. Next, I decided to make the printer suffer a little bit more. I wanted to test the bed adhesion on multiple parts, so I printed 15 tiny articulated skeleton crocodiles all at once, and the little skull section snapped together with no interference or issues. Every joint moved properly, and the details were surprisingly sharp considering how tiny these models are. But even with the old filament, the actual print quality still looked phenomenal. Tiny articulated prints such as these usually expose motion or cooling problems really quickly, but the printer handled all of these without any trouble at all. Next up, I printed this silk gold PLA dice tower. And this thing came out beautiful. Silk filament can sometimes be annoying because the inconsistencies show up really easily, especially on larger surfaces. But the finish on this looked fantastic. There was basically no stringing at all, and all the fine details came out super crisp. Even the little staircase and the hand railings printed incredibly clean. And I was genuinely impressed by this because I was worried that the railing wasn't going to print properly. The dice tower came out great, and I'm very impressed with it. Now, obviously, I needed to test the multicolor system on this 3D printer. So I printed this rotten skull apple core model. I did have to clean up some support material, but other than that, the printer handled everything really well. The print took just under 9 hours. Honestly, the biggest thing I was looking for here was color separation or bleeding. The details stayed sharp, the colors remained separated properly, and overall, the finished model looked super clean. And I do want to point out, the Ace 2 Pro was efficient and quick at swapping colors. It did produce a little bit of waste, but it seemed reasonable for the multicolor functionality that this printer has. I have never used glow-in-the-dark filament before, and when I got it, I had to try it out. First, I printed a little benchy as a quick test, and honestly, it came out great. Except now it glows radioactive green in the dark, which automatically makes it cooler. So after that worked, I decided I had to go bigger. So I decided to print a moon lithophane. The print took about 13 hours, and I was slightly worried because the footprint of the model was pretty small compared to the sheer size of the moon. But the printer handled it without any issues. I didn't use any supports, and the top of the model is a sheer overhang. The surface quality came out beautiful, and the moon texture looks incredibly detailed, and when you shine a light inside of it, it acts like a lithophane. But then when the lights go out, it turns into this giant glowing green orb, which honestly looks amazing, and I'm extremely happy with the results. I typically use PLA for everything I print, and I don't really use ABS or PETG because I like breathing clean air. But I still wanted to see how this printer would handle ABS and PETG, so naturally, more benchies. The ABS benchy took around 48 minutes and came out pretty decent. I did notice some slight Z-banding, but nothing too major. It seemed to print with the ABS just fine. Then I moved on to the PETG benchy, which took about 52 minutes. And honestly, same story. The printer handled both materials fine, and the results were pretty decent. Also, there's this very visible line which is known as the hull line. It's very common to see on benchies since this is where the transition between the shell and the floor top layers occurs. Now, obviously, these weren't long duration torture tests of the material, but I just wanted to do a quick validation test to show that the Kobra 4 can print with ABS and PETG. Next, I specifically wanted to test multicolor 3D printing on the first layer of a print, because the first layer is the most important part. So I printed these Pokeball coasters where the artwork is built directly into the first layer, and these came out really nice. The entire print only took around 2 hours for 4 coasters. The first layers looked super clean and uniform, and the colors stayed really clean throughout the entire design. There were no weird gaps or ugly inconsistencies anywhere. I do think the red filament could have been slightly brighter, but honestly, that's more of a filament issue than a printer issue. Overall, this was an awesome test, and it's a great example of the multicolor functionality of this 3D printer. And for the final test, I wanted to print something that was all about color quality. So I printed this Great Wave wall art piece. And honestly, this might be my favorite print from the entire video. Across the entire print, the gradient looked super smooth. The layers stayed super consistent, and all the tiny details of the waves came out really sharp. And since this print is mostly flat, the top surface looked fantastic. But this thing genuinely came out amazing, and I love the look of it. It did produce a bit of waste, but honestly, for the finished product, I'm very happy with it. So in conclusion, I'm very impressed with this printer. Through all of the prints that I tested, I'm very happy with how every single one came out. It was extremely consistent and reliable for all of these prints. I'm not lying when I say I had 0 issues or major failures on anything that I 3D printed. This is a very beginner-friendly printer, and I can highly recommend it to people that want to get into the hobby or want to get their very first 3D printer. It's extremely simple to use, very quick to set up, and also very reliable. I want to give a huge thanks to Anycubic for sponsoring this video and sending me this 3D printer, and I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Links for everything will be in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one.